Parshas Shemos. This week's Parsha introduces us to the slavery of the children of Israel in the land of Egypt and to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, who becomes the leader, the teacher, the redeemer of Israel as the agent of the Almighty. There are two verses that seem to repeat a theme. And we'll try to figure out what the resolution of this apparent surplusage is. So in Perek Beis, Psukim Yud and Yud Aleph, that is chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. They read as follows. Vayigdal hayeled, this is talking about the child, is Moshe, and he grows up in the house of Parero. He is saved from the Nile by the daughter of Parero. And he grows up, Vayigdal hayeled, the boy got big, Vatvielu vas Parero, and his mother, Moshe's mother, who was hired as a wet nurse, brought him to the daughter of Parero, Vahila Lebain, and she was as a son, an adopted son for Bas Parero. And she calls him Moshe, and she says, Kimin Amei Mishisihu, who drew him out of the water. The very next verse, after it says, Vayigdal hayeled, in that the lad grew, in verse 10, verse 11, it says, Vayihi bayamim haim, and it was in those days, Vayigdal Moshe, it's the same word, Moshe grew up. Vayetzei el echav, and he went out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivlosam, and he looked at their troubles, their afflictions. Vayar ish mitzri makeh ish ivri me'achav, and he sees an Egyptian fellow hitting a Hebrew of his brothers, and it says he looked all over and he smote the Egyptian. Question is, why does it repeat Vayigdal? And he grew up. Just said that in verse 10. It says Vayigdal hayeled, and now it says Vayihi bayimim hayim Vayigdal Moshe. The lad grew up, Moshe grew up. What does it mean? So Rashi asks this question, and he says Va'alo kvar kosav Vayigdal hayeled. Didn't it already say that the lad grew up? Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eloi. So Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eloi, quoted in Rashi, says Harishon lekoma. The first one is referring to his physical stature, his height. He got tall. Vasheni legdula, and the second to greatness. Now he gives a specific example of greatness. She minohu Paro al besa, that Paro appointed him over his house. But we see here a distinction. One refers to a physical maturation. The other refers to a personality, or one might even say spiritual maturation. But it certainly refers to a sense of greatness or leadership. Now, what is the manifestation of that leadership? So, according to Rashi, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eloi, he was appointed to manage things in Paro's house. But if you look at the rest of the verse, it says Vayar b'sivlosam, and he looked in their troubles. It doesn't say Vayar es sivlosam, as one of the Meforshei Rashi explains. It doesn't say he saw their troubles, but rather Vayar b'sivlosam. He looked into their troubles. What does that mean? He looked into their troubles. Not just that he noticed their troubles. He looked into their troubles. So Rashi says, Nosan Einov Velibo. He put his eyes and his mind, Lios Meitzar Aleim, to be troubled for them, to be concerned about them. So we might suggest that a reflection of the stature of Moshe Rabbeinu that the verse describes, the manifestation is he is a great person. He's a gadol. What does he do as a result of being gadol? He looks out for the welfare of others. He checks to see what do they need. There are many midrashim that says that he helped Nosan Kseifav. He shouldered the burden. He rearranged the burdens on some people. Small people had very large burdens. Large people had small burdens. This was all either to overwhelm or to humiliate as a part of an oppressive scheme on the part of the Egyptians. And Moshe Rabbeinu came around and he shifted the burdens in what would appear to be an attempt of serving the king more efficiently, but actually what he was doing was redistributing the burdens that people would not suffer as much. So we see that a reflection of his being a gadol, of being a great person, a big person, is that he looked beyond himself and he looked to help out others. Now, I received this week not a personal message, but a message that was forwarded to me, and the message says, I know that Yeshiva week is coming up. People are going to be taking vacations. Please don't post pictures of your vacations while there are people who are suffering, while there are hostages, while there are in captivity, while there are soldiers who are in harm's way, while there are families who are grieving for soldiers. And he says, you might think, he said, I can't take a vacation. I'm emotionally not capable, this person writes, of taking a vacation at this point. He says, but if you are, please don't post pictures. So in our family, we had a discussion about this. And upon reflection, this request, I think, has basis in Jewish thought. There are a couple of points are applicable. One of them is that we need to convey a sense of empathy and solidarity. Imcha anochi batzara. I'm with you with your tsar. And the second is to avoid lo eg lo rush, which literally means mocking the poor. We'll talk about this. So as far as the first point, imcha anochi batzara, it is said that during World War I, which was terribly destructive, not just for the world in general, but for Jews specifically, that the Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, was so troubled by this that he couldn't allow himself to sleep in his bed during the duration of the war, and he slept on the floor. As if other Jews were in serious trouble and were discomfited, he could not indulge. I remember being in the home of my Rebbe, Rav Soloveitchik, discussing a different matter when somebody, a chaver of mine, David, came in. He had planned, this was during a conflict in Israel, a war, one or another, maybe the beginning of the Intifada. And this fellow had planned a family vacation to Orlando. And he was sensitive, and he asked Rav Aaron whether he should go. And Rav Aaron said he should not go during this time of trouble, and he canceled his tickets. Now, the second point is, don't hang up yet, there's more to go. The second issue is lo eg lo rush, which can be roughly rendered as rubbing their noses in the fact that they don't have something that you have, or that you have something they don't. So to develop this sensitivity, for example, the halacha dictates that when you go to a Beis HaKvaros, when you go to a cemetery, that a man should make sure that his tzitzis are not visible. He should tuck in his tzitzis, even if he normally wears them out. He should tuck them in. Why? Because the dead cannot perform mitzvahs, and here you are with an obvious mitzvah, you're walking around with your tzitzis. So do the dead really care? I don't know. But the halacha is developing within us a sensitivity that if there are others who don't have, we should not flaunt what we have. It doesn't say you shouldn't wear tzitzis. It says don't make it obvious that you're wearing tzitzis. So I wouldn't say, personally, I wouldn't make a blanket ruling, not that I'm somebody to make a ruling, but I don't know that there's a blanket ruling that people shouldn't take vacations. I think that should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and if somebody is sensitive to the issue, then he should ask his Rav. But I do believe that posting to Facebook or Instagram or other social media is a no-brainer. We owe it to our brothers and sisters for whom our taking a vacation might convey apathy, or at least a lack of sensitivity to the plight of hundreds of thousands of fellow Jews who are displaced from their homes or are hanging fearfully on every text message or phone call, who have hostages, who are being held by very cruel people in Gaza. It's just a very, very tough situation. We don't want to convey a sense that we don't care, and that we simply are unaffected. Now, many people are affected. Everybody I know in our community is affected and feels terrible. Not posting pictures is hardly a sacrifice, and it can reflect a genuine sensitivity to Achenu Beis Yisrael and Esunim B'tzara V'Shivya. The Gemara in Taanis, Daf Yud Aleph, speaks very critically of somebody who, when Bnei Yisrael are bitzar, are in trouble, whether it's because of a famine or something else, and he goes about his business. He has what to eat, he has what to drink, and he indulges. The Gemara is very critical of people who act in a way that demonstrates a complete lack of empathy. We want to be great. We want to be empathetic and supportive of Achenu Beis Yisrael, of our brothers and sisters throughout the world who are suffering, and especially in the land of Israel. Our prayers are with them, literally, daily. We have our troubles here. We're not unmindful of that. They have very, very immediate and severe troubles there. They are in our prayers. They are in our minds. They're in our hearts. We think about them constantly. We cry for them. They're us. They are us. And we will not, ought not, do anything that will convey a sense of anything other than we care for you, we pray for you, and we will ultimately rejoice with you. Have a good Shabbos.